Okay, I think we're going to get going. I believe I have the correct screen for everybody. Okay. Alrighty, moving on to lesson number 11. Is that correct? Okay, actually I'm going to stop for a second, back up. I'm going through these Scratch projects right now. I'm still missing 3 or 4 people per assignment. You have to share the Scratch project using the link in the assignment, and then you have to submit the assignment blank. Okay, so you share the Scratch project, submit the assignment blank. There's just 2 or 3 people I think that are missing that, and I don't have an assignment for you to mark. There's also a few people that have usernames that I have no idea who you are. Maybe I'm just thick and I can't figure out the connection between your username and your real name. But if you could contact me, if you have the username on Scratch, the username, what is it here? And I'm probably going to end up forgetting this every time, which is why I asked you to create usernames that I'd be able to guess. But it's Winder4322. So on Scratch, if your username is Winder4322, please email me, message me, let me know that it's you, because I don't know who it is. Okay? All right. Moving on. We are moving on to lesson 10, string variables. So in string variables, I have a video here for you to go through. You watch that on your own. You have to spend that much time going through it anyway, so you may as well give it a shot. And with these videos, you should be using Repellent in another window, and I leave all the line numbers in all the screenshots. At the end of the video or at the end of the lesson, you should have the exact same program as me. Write it exactly the same. Capitalizations, spaces between, make it exactly the same. You can see that here. I have the line numbers here because when you get to the end of the lesson, it's going to ask you to submit something, and that's how I make sure that you've completed the lesson. Sometimes the output matching doesn't work 100%, so then you get stuck and it says, it doesn't match, it doesn't match. Are you sure you want to submit? The output doesn't match. It's not that big of a deal. If it says that, just submit it anyway. I'll be able to go in and see where the little error was. I'm not too worked up about this. It's just a check to make sure that you've submitted the lesson. Okay? All right, string variables. So we have, just like in Scratch, we have strings. Strings are always defined inside quotation marks, and they are like a facsimile of anything, any character grouping that you put together, including blank spaces. Okay, remember we talked about that, how that gets a little bit dangerous when we're using numbers, because a number in a string is no longer a number. It's just a copy of what a number looks like. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with strings. So if we go through here and we create our first, let's start a new Repellent, Python, call it delete me. And I will do my best in this, as I go through this live lesson, to keep it as close to the same as what it was. But to start this off, I'm going to create a comment that says string variables, and then I'm going to say print lesson 10 string variables. That should give me out just the title of what this lesson is, and it obviously ignores the comment. Okay. I do want to, I'm actually really impressed with the amount of comments you're using in Scratch for the most part. I still have a group of maybe 6 people who either put no comments in or just sparing comments. On major blocks of code, you're going to put a comment in and say, this does this, okay? Same thing with Python. We want to include the important stuff there. All right, so now I want to create a string. So I'm going to call my string name. I'm going to say it equals Luke Skywalker. Forgive my slow typing. Okay, that is it. That's all you have to do to instantiate a string variable. The name of the variable is name. I'm sorry, I'm bad at naming things. It becomes very confusing when I keep saying the name of the name is name. But the variable's name is name, lowercase n. Okay? And then inside, I put the value of that variable. The value of that variable is Luke Skywalker. This exact phrase with this space right here. The computer knows it's a string variable because I started out the value with quotation marks. If I don't close the quotation marks, I get an error, my program doesn't run. Okay, and then it tells me right here. You have a line 3 error, and it gives you, it'll point at where the arrow is. A lot of time this stuff is confusing and not very helpful, but it'll at least tell you where the error is occurring. Syntax just means format. It means correct format. A syntax means something has to be done the exact correct way. All right, so I put my quotation mark back, and I'm all set up. Now, I'm not going to refer the lesson too much because I think I have most of what we want to do figured out here. Now, if I want to do something with that string, all right, I'm going to print it. So now I say print name. When I run my program, it prints out the title, and then it prints out whatever the value of my variable is. All right? It does not, remember, it does not print out blank spaces in a code line unless I put something in there to print a blank space. So if I say print like so, now it's, oops, the autocorrect sometimes is a little difficult. It did it again. Just delete one. My bad. Okay, so now it prints that space for us on the code line. You have to insert something on there for the computer to do that. Okay? It reads these spaces because those spaces are included within the quotation marks of the print statement. Okay? So you can see here, I don't have to type out Luke Skywalker every time because the value of my variable called name is Luke Skywalker. So all I say is print that out and it will print it out. Now, there's a few mistakes that we can make that are very common. First one is to say preempt. The first one is to do this. Okay, print name. I'm already getting my error message, and it's saying undefined name with a capital M. So it's asking, it's saying that variable that you're trying to print doesn't exist. Even though it's the exact same characters as my variable, it has a capital N, therefore it's wrong. And I'm going to be honest with all of you, this is where I struggle badly with coding. Fine details is not my strong suit. I will often write a great big long program and have a semicolon missing, and that's why my program wasn't working. Because I forget little details like that. I'm not attuned to that kind of thing. And I want to teach you this now so that you're aware and you know that this and this are two different things. Okay? So that would give me an error because I printed it wrong. The next mistake that people will make, and you saw me make it when I was trying to put this space in here, I mixed up the syntax for declaring a variable and printing that variable because I didn't put the brackets around the quotations. I just put the quotations the way I would if I was declaring the value of a variable. All right? So I made that mistake just now. So you'll make it as well, but if you do this one, print name. Now I run it, and it's just going to print name because it's just printing this as a string. Okay? Let's go back here and make sure I've got it all. All right, we can apply things called functions. Functions, methods, they are programs within the program. They are little side pieces of code that allow you to run a specific command set, and then you don't have to create the code for you yourself. Okay? The first one is called len, and it's obviously it's short for length. Okay? So if I print, I would like the computer to print the length of name. And you can see this all auto-corrected for me. And it's important to understand this. I'm going to take a second now and do that. Terminology is important, but in this field, different people are going to call the same thing different things. All right? I call that a bracket, sometimes parentheses. I think parentheses is the correct term, but I call it a bracket a lot. So if you hear me say bracket or parentheses, that's what I'm talking about. If you see me use this one, I call that a brace. Okay, and if you see me use that one, I call that a curly brace. And I don't care if I'm wrong. All right, I taught myself Java and Python in about 6 months. I can call them whatever I want. If you leave here and you find a better teacher than me, which you most likely will, and they say, that's wrong, that's not called a curly brace, that's called a whatever, congratulations. You can come back and yell at me for teaching you the wrong name. I'm just telling you this is what I call them so that when I'm teaching, you know the difference. All right, if I say bracket or parentheses, that's what this is. Brace is the square one, curly brace is the curly one. All right? And you can see as I was typing this code, this auto-corrected for me. So I created one bracket and it puts a second one up there for you. All right? But I'm using a function. A function has to be within its own bracket set. It is right there, but it doesn't have anything to find the length of. So now I put my variable in there, and that's why I have 2 brackets at the end. Both of these items within my program have to be within their own set of brackets. So name is inside its set, and then len is inside the bigger set. So the nested brackets include name. Now when I run that, oh, I should have asked. Shoot. Okay, so it came up at 14. That means I have 14 characters in this string. And if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's only coming up at 13. Obviously, the 14 is what? The space, yes, okay? The computer can't define the difference between a blank space and an actual character. So when I ask the length of this, it tells me the exact length. How many spaces, how many characters, how many everything are in there. Okay, that's 14. It's important to understand the difference between the length, the len function, and then when we get into indexing strings. When we index strings, which we're going to do in a second, the number system completely changes. So we have to be aware of that. When we use len, all it does is tell us how many characters exist within that string. Okay? So now we can do something that I love harping on students about, and that's called I can use a prompt. So right now, if you're a user, so pretend you're a user for a second. That means you're stupid because users are stupid. And you get this information printed out to you. Luke Skywalker, name 14. That doesn't tell you anything. These might be the right answers to what I'm trying to get you to tell me, but I pretend I'm the user when I mark your work. So now I don't know what you're showing me. What is Luke Skywalker? What is name? What is 14? Why are you showing that to me? Okay, that's where we're going to use this method right here. So I say name, space, and then I add plus name. So that when it prints out, it says name, Luke Skywalker. Now I can look at that and I could say, oh, it's like a sign-up sheet or something. this guy named Luke Skywalker just filled out a form where it said name. It at least gives me some information. And now I'll call these prompts sometimes. These are more titles, whatever they want to be. This part is an explanation for this part here. Okay, and there's a couple other ways to do this as well. There's some that are confusing. The way I just did it is probably the simplest way. There's a really confusing one where you go name and whoops. So when I print that one out, it does the exact same thing. All right, I'm just showing it to you to show you that you can do the same thing 10 different ways. Now, in my world, these 3 ways are probably all the same, but one of them is the one that I would prefer that you did. Okay, so we go name, colon, space, and then we use curly braces, and then we say dot format, and we put our variable name in there. This is the one that I would prefer because you're going to use this function a lot. This one's fine. This one just seems convoluted. So we probably won't ever use that. All right. This one is the one I want you to use. Dot format's a method, and I don't understand the reason it's called dot format, maybe because it sets a specific format in place. What it does is when the computer sees curly braces, it says, oh, curly braces. I'm going to expect to see a dot format coming. Computer follows down the line, says, oh yeah, dot format. Whatever the next command is, I put it in here. It could be a number in these brackets. It could be a string. It could be a variable. The computer says when it sees dot format, whatever I see in the following brackets, I'm going to put into those parentheses, into those curly braces. Okay, so it takes everything back and dumps it in there. So when I run this, I get the same thing. This, even though it doesn't make sense right now, is the way I would prefer you do this, because you'll end up using this dot format a lot, and it'll save you more time. Because you can do things like this. I don't know if this will actually work, but I'll give it a shot. Might not work, but let's see. No. Okay, there's another one in there. But what you can do with this one, when I remember the syntax and show you how to do it later on, is you can use multiple curly braces, use dot format. You might have to do dot format in front of all of them. But when I do show you this in a later lesson, it becomes a lot cleaner. No. And that's just a simpler way than using this one where you're going to constantly have to type, a 2 or 3 line command code to get it to do what you want it to do. Okay, so in the end, I want you to use this one. All right. Okay, so we have a few other string methods that I want to show you as well. So if we use the dot upper method, and we know the difference between a method and a function. This is a function. It's purple, like print. It's a function. It carries out a specific operation. A method has a dot in front of it. So it's dot format, dot upper, dot lower. Okay, so I'm going to print yelling. I'm going to leave it all in lowercase. And I'm going to say dot upper. And then I'm going to say print talking. And I'm going to leave it all in uppercase. And I'm going to say dot lower. Methods always have to have one of those as well. Okay, that's going to be a lesson now as well. All right, so you can see I typed this string all lowercase, but I use the dot upper. It takes every character in that string and puts it uppercase. I created this one as all uppercase. The dot lower method takes them and puts them all into lowercase. Okay? I had an error there before, and I didn't know what it was. And then again, I went and looked, and I had held down shift when, or I had not held down shift when I made my parentheses. Now, sorry, quotations. You can see I'm getting an error now, and if I try to run the program, I'm going to get an error. And it says the error is in line 14. The issue here is that I've split the quotations. I've used a single quotation first and a double quotation at the end. It doesn't matter which one you use. You can use single quotations for strings or double. You have to use the same thing for both. And I will, in terms of what I want you to do, I don't care. You can use double quotations or single quotations for your strings. I don't care. Either one is fine. Just pick one right now, and that's the one you're going to use forever. Don't switch it. Don't use single quotations at some points in your program and doubles in other places. That's just ridiculous and crazy. Okay, I always use doubles, so I'm going to always use doubles. And I fixed my program. All right, I'm going to make another. Everybody good still? I don't know if anybody would talk anyway. But I'm going to make another string variable, and I'm going to call it Imperial Death March. All right, and I'm going to show you two more methods. So I'm going to say print my string variable called title, and I want it capitalized. I'm also going to print it again, and I want it titled. Man, am I bad at naming these things? Okay. So what this one does, capitalize, is going to take the first initial of your string and capitalize it. The way that it would capitalize the beginning of a sentence. So that's what you can think of that as. Capitalize is like capitalizing a sentence. It's not going to capitalize the first character in every word in the string. It's just going to capitalize the first character of the first word, the way it would in a sentence. If I say title, it's going to capitalize the first character in every single word in there. Now, when I run this, I get an error. Where's my mistake? This is another thing that I forget a lot when it comes to methods. There's two identifying characteristics with methods. The first one's the dot that I already told you about. So look back through there and see what I'm missing with my two methods here, capitalize and title. I'll give you time. If somebody watching at home can figure it out too, write it in the Teams chat. Yeah, what is it?
I think there's like a little set of brackets after.
Exactly, yes. Okay, all methods have a dot to start, period to start, and then they have an end set of brackets. That end set of brackets can hold other values, other parameters that can be used with the method. And you can see that with the dot format. In the dot format, we put the name in there so that it knows what to put into the curly braces. The same thing here, and you can see them here. Those are the braces, the brackets. We don't need to put anything in there because we've already identified what action, what item of our program we want the method to act on by saying title dot. It knows that we want to capitalize on title and we want a title. I'm really sorry for my naming. My naming's really bad. Okay, so when I run these, I get Imperial Death March with just the Imperial capitalized, and then the second one, I get it like a title. Every single first character is capitalized. Okay, still with me? Almost done. We are going to do slices. Let's do it this way. Okay, slices is where we're going to start indexing our strings. And this is where we have to understand the difference between the function length and indexing strings. Okay, so we're going to use this variable to start with. And I'm going to say print title. So the computer knows what I want to use. I'm going to use a regular brace, and I'm going to say 0, 8. Now this is just going to print Imperial, and here's why. Okay, you can see right there. It just prints Imperial. When anytime a string is created, the computer indexes it. Index it means it gives a place and a value to every single character in that index. All right, and there's a confusing part in this that students always struggle with, and Mr. Barron struggles with because I forget to do it almost every time I use slices. If we take each character in inside this string, they have a value. The issue is, and the reason this is different than the len function, is because, oh, I spelt it wrong. Is because when you count as a computer scientist, you start with 0. 0 holds a value, kinda. All right, don't tell Mr. Hubrick that I said that, but 0 holds a value for us, and it can represent something within the index. So the first character in your string always starts at 0. So the I is 0, the M is 1, P 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The space is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The space is 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, that is indexing. So if you are looking for the index in a string, it's not just the number of characters in it. Okay, so when we got this number 14 here, it's saying there's 14 characters in here. Well, what did I get? I got to 15 when I counted it out, I think. Let me do it again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so 19. Now if I just do the len function, but change it to title and run that, I get 20. But I only have 19 when I index it because we start at 0. Okay, this is a critical thing to memorize. Now here's another part that this confuses students every single year. The total value of a integer that you can use in a program is like 2 billion something 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 million something 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 thousand. Once you get to that point, if you add one more to that 2 billion number, it goes from being a positive to being a negative. It wraps around because in the world of integer, that number is the highest number you can have. 2 billion something, whatever it is. I'm not going to memorize it. It's not important. It wraps around and it goes back to the bottom of the list. So it goes to the top of the list, 2 billion whatever. You add 1 to that, and now it goes to the very lowest number it knows, which is the same number but negative. And then it would start counting up again from the negatives. Okay? So a lot of times, if you want to reference the last number, the last place in an index, you say -1. -1 means the last, whatever the last one is, that's it, -1. So because of this convoluted breakdown of how indexes work, anytime you want to isolate or attack a specific point in the index, you have to add one because of that. Because you start with a 0, and because you have that very weird -1 issue going on, you have to add one. Okay, so when I say I want to go from 0 to 8, the computer's like, okay, it prints 0, and it stops printing at 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so it goes to here, and it actually won't print 8. So right now, if we were able to see this, it wouldn't print 8. It would have stopped at 9. Okay, so I'm going to do that by adding 2 L's. Now let's go LMN to that first word. And now when I run this, you can see I still get imperial because I have not accounted for the +1 when indexing a string. And I'm sorry you don't understand why that is. I gave you a long explanation in terms of the -1 and all that. If you don't understand it, that's okay. You don't need to understand how your car works to drive your car. You can still drive it. All right? So for now, just always add a +1 anytime you're trying to target a specific point in an index. All right? So if I wanted to include this M, then I'm going to have to change my code to 9. Okay? Now the M is included. And you have to do that all the time. All right? Now, calling this index. So this is what's called slicing. So I'm slicing. I'm only going to pull pieces of my variable in. I give it inside the braces, I give it a start point, and I give it an end point, separated by a colon. The start point is 0, the end point is 9. If I don't put a start point, it just starts at the beginning. Okay, I'm going to get the same output here. If I don't put an end point, I hope this works in Java, but let's see. Okay, good. So if I don't put an endpoint, the computer's like, fine, you didn't put an endpoint, you're lazy, I'm just going to print the whole thing. And it prints the whole thing. And that works at any point. If I start here and don't put an endpoint, it finds the 4, and it starts to print from there. Okay, so I can go through multiple examples of this, and you have to when you go through the lesson yourself. I can say 9 and 14. I can say print title 15 and 20. Let's change this one back to 0 and 8 and fix our error. And then we print it out, and we've got each word from that string on its own line printed separately. Okay, that's kind of the purpose of slices. Once we start getting into loops and things like that, there's a better way to print things on different lines than having to do this every time. But for now, that's the method that I'm going to show you, so you understand how to slice things. It's actually more important for you to just understand how the index works. Okay, so I did that. Did that. Okay, these things are what I was talking about at the beginning. I'm going to start embedding these now because Repellit's new version allows me to embed it. You'll actually be able to do your work right here in Moodle. You don't have to go to the Repellit website. You can work right here in this window. If you ever have a weird error that you can't figure out, just go to the Repellit site and work on it there. Because sometimes, because you're working through the embedded link, sometimes it has trouble with it. Not very often, but sometimes it does. And you're more than welcome to just go to the Repellit website if you want to. But you'll see at the end, I've only done it for a couple right now, but like this string variables assignment, the assignment is opening up right there. Okay, so you can work on it right here. So if I go to edit project, it gives me the option to change inside there. Okay, any questions specifically about string variables. I don't have any from anyone on Teams. I am going to go to the assignment. Assignment number 11, string variable. Sometimes that happens. It's doing a lot on a on web software. So, okay. So this assignment is. This comes from the curriculum. You can read it if you want to. I want you to instantiate. Remember, instantiate just means create or introduce or bring into your program 5 string variables that say something about who you are as a person. Okay, so you can't copy this from somebody else because they should all be unique based on who you are. Make sure they're unique to you. If you have some that are exactly the same as somebody else, you're either being too lazy with what you're saying or you're copying it from somebody else. So make it unique so that that's not a problem. Have all 5 strings displayed in uppercase and lowercase. So you will have your 5 strings, and then you'll have your 5 strings printed again in uppercase, and then you'll have your 5 strings printed again all in lowercase, using the uppercase and lowercase methods. Okay? Concatenate. Sorry, I didn't teach you that word. You're going to find it's computer science. You probably find this in all sciences. They like to use fancy words for simple concepts. Concatenate, I just like saying it. It's a fun word, but it just means combine or put together. Okay, so when we were slicing up that string, we were just putting things together. So if I wanted to, I could have printed, I lost this one. If I wanted to, I could have printed, I could have broken it up like this and printed them out of order. So now it says Imperial March Death instead of Imperial Death March. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm asking you to do here. Combine 2 or more strings or string variables to create a joke. Okay, I'd be happy if it actually made me laugh, but that's not necessarily the most important part. So you're going to create a string variable with the joke, and then you're going to create another string variable with the punchline. So then when I run your program, the joke comes up, and then the punchline after that. Okay? Slice up a string variable and have it display its parts in a unique order. So that's the example I just gave you right here. This is the actual order. I had it print in 3 different orders using slices. Okay, and I'm gonna stress this again. Comments. You have to have comments in almost all the major blocks that you have. So in terms of where I would put comments, I would have comments here saying, these are my examples of printing your string variable. Then I'd have another comment here. These are my examples of using functions and methods. Here I'd say, further method examples. And then here I'd say, examples of slices. That's where I would have comments. On this tiny little 26-line program, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 comments in there, explaining what they are. Plus, you're going to have your top comments right here that I expect at the top of every program. Would you highlight already? Okay. These ones right here. Project description, program description, date, student name, program name. I'm going to have all of those included. All right? Once you finish that, I don't have it because I'm not a student, but up here, you will have a submit. You click submit, then you go back to the Moodle assignment, and you submit this assignment blank. I need those 2 things to happen or I don't get your mark. I don't know that you're finished. That's the same thing that's happening in Scratch where I'm not getting students assignments because they're not sharing the Scratch project. Okay? That is string variable lesson. That is the string variable assignment. I put some examples here. I was heavily involved with Hockey Regina's female division when I made these, obviously a few years ago. Not that any of it's changed. So something that I'm dealing with lots, marginalization of women. I deal a lot with female hockey. Skate like a girl. It's a comment that I personally have an issue with, but I try and take it back from being negative, and I like to yell that at my daughter's hockey games. It really bothers the boys a lot. This is my favorite line in all of Star Wars, all 11 movies. It's my absolute favorite one. This is a great line from The Matrix, and this is my joke. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back a stick? Okay, and then I mess things up. Girl ass skate like. Those are all example outputs that you'd see. This is not the example of what the code would look like. This is just an example of the outputs. You would also have these 5 statements should be printed in uppercase and lowercase. Whew, okay, that was a lot of talking. Are there questions? Once you finish that, you can go on to quiz 2. You still have an hour and 20 minutes in terms of being able to finish that up. I believe that's more than enough time to complete that assignment. So I'll put the due date for that today, as well as the quiz for today. And I'm going to go on to lesson 11 tomorrow. Maybe I'll give you a little extra time and I won't go on to that lesson until 9:30, just to give you half an hour tomorrow to do the quiz. You don't need half an hour. The quizzes take maybe 5 minutes. But